Hi there. My name is Dr. Benita Jackson. I'm a psychology professor and the director of the Society Psychology and Health Laboratory here at Smith College. Have you ever wondered about the stories behind the people who create research in psychology? You are in the right place. This series is about spotlighting Smith alums working across the spectrum of psychology. Come, join us around the lab table. My lab members and I hope that the range of stories from these amazing scholars offer inspiration to current and future psychology researchers from any background. Maybe that's you. Curious? Let's have a listen.
Hello, my name is Anna Peel, and I am a research assistant at the Society Psychology and Health Laboratory at Smith College. Today I'd like to introduce you to Will Ryan, a Smith graduate from the class of 2009. This interview was conducted fall 2016 by a then Smith student, Everett Owen, with technical support from Josie Brown. At the time of the interview, Dr. Ryan was pursuing a PhD in psychological and brain sciences at the University of California, Santa Barbara. In his interview, he discusses his perspectives on psychology and activism as a trans man in graduate school. What connections do you see between psychology and activism?
I feel kind of a disconnect between there's a lot of people who are doing research on issues that affect queer communities and communities of color, but it's not always that those researchers are also actually interested in doing activist work around those in psychology. I really struggle with the view that many psychologists hold that if you're engaged in that it makes you a biased researcher in some way, that you're somehow exposing your bias. My opinion on that is everybody has biases, and at least those of us involved in activism are honest about those. And it's clear where we're coming from in our research, whereas other people try to maintain this eye of objectivity that doesn't exist, and instead they just hide their biases. And that's actually more problematic than being clear about where you're coming from. I really struggled with that because I think a lot of psychologists, at least in the department I'm in here, see that their work that they're doing, that researching these populations is enough, and I don't feel like that's enough. We need to do more, that if we're going to, in some ways, profit off of people that we're studying for our own careers, we really need to be giving back directly, and hoping that your research article will be read by someone who's going to do something with that information really isn't enough.
How would you respond to the stereotype that historically women's colleges don't prepare students for work in the real world?
I know that the stereotype is that we're in some liberal bubble then, and then we're not really engaging with other ideas, but I think, no, it was kind of like a crucible for people to form those types of ideas in a space where you need the time and space to come up with those ideas, where people aren't going to just shut them down. Everywhere else there is a devil's advocate. Like, we don't need that all the time. Sometimes you need to push those ideas forward and not get stymied in those same old arguments every time that you might have in a different classroom. And I don't feel like we didn't deal with tough issues there. So it's not like I was surprised when I got back to the real world and people didn't feel that way. Like, we were talking about that. We were well aware of that. And we're talking about how to deal with that, not how to hide from it. And so I think there's this idea that, we're all at Smith kind of hiding from the rest of the world in our little queer bubble, but I don't feel that to be the case. I feel like it's a point to come together and to mobilize and to grow the future leaders, and then they can go out and do great things with that. I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces, is feeling like we're really valued and our minds are valued, and that's what I really felt at Smith. I think that was the hardest part for me about coming out as trans, was that I was kind of realizing that all around the same time as I was becoming a feminist, and I was like, but how can I want to be a man if I'm really invested in feminism now? And it took like one of my friends at Smith being like, dude, you can still be a feminist, like, you idiot. And I was like, oh my god, yeah, you can.
How have you navigated your identity as a trans man in graduate school?
I had a lot of feedback early on from many people in the field and well-intentioned people and liberal people saying that I shouldn't be out and that was going to negatively impact my career, even though they want to know how you're diverse, but they didn't want that kind of diversity. I really took that in and thought that wasn't a good thing to be doing and that I would be treated differently or something. And maybe that's the case, but frankly, I don't care. I think it's important, but it took some time for me to feel, I guess, brave enough to do that, or to realize that I didn't need to be taking this advice from these people, that they didn't necessarily know best.
Thanks for joining us today. What did you think? What did you feel? Of course I would ask that. I'm a psychology researcher. But it's true, we want to know.
Email us at spalab@smith.edu. That's SPAHLAB@smith.edu. We'd love to hear your biggest takeaways from the interview you just heard.
If you enjoyed this, browse our channel, like and subscribe. That way you can be kept up on our growing collection of interviews. Till next time, stay curious.